Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plethora of Change, where we have conversations with inspiring women about how they're creating change in their communities. Today, we have a very special guest who is making sure that meaningful youth participation is a reality rather than just a promise. Please welcome Anya Suprunenko.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Iram, for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Anya. And I want to delve right in. So, could you, without talking about your background or the current job that you do, share with us one thing everyone should know about you?
As we will talk about my professional role as well, I think what I would like you all to know is that I really believe in the power of young people and that they shape the future now. And this is really what I'm convinced.
And it really fits well with the work that you do as well. So, then if we were to do this introduction in a normal way, how would you introduce yourself? Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and what you do in your daily life.
Yeah, thank you, Iram. I'm Anya. I came from Ukraine to Germany 10 years ago, and I've done my education here in Germany and then built a family, built a career, and I have two wonderful children. So I'm also a mother, but also I lead a team here in Berlin, and I'm responsible together with, of course, our youth workers and youth board for the development of European Youth Parliament.
And what is European Youth Parliament?
European Youth Parliament is a massive platform network organization. You could find different words for it, but it is an organization, a network of many. And this is about providing young people a platform to empower them, to activate them to become active citizens. But in, let's say, practical terms, what it does, it brings young people together from 40 different countries to exchange ideas, to engage in political, societal, cultural issues, and of course, through that, just experience Europe, experience friendships, experience the beauty of our continent.
It felt a little bit weird asking you what European Youth Parliament is, and I'm also a member and I work with you, of course. But Anya, I'm a little bit curious how you got involved with EYP.
So I myself was also a volunteer. I think it's a known fact for those who know me, but of course, when I was 17, it was the very first national event in Ukraine, where I'm from. And I, by chance, as I think many of our participants took part in it, and ever since I became active, I really found this opportunity extremely meaningful. Of course, looking back, it really shaped my life as nothing else probably did. It gave me the opportunities I didn't have before because I come from a very, not very, but small city in Ukraine. So it was really the first time with EYP that I've spoken English, I've gone abroad, I've met so many foreigners. And then I just pursued the ladder of participation as a volunteer. So I took up some leadership roles in the organization. And then eventually, of course, years after, so I took a break for starting my other jobs and doing my education. And then eventually it also became my professional.
It's interesting because you're also from a non-European country, technically, like non-EU country. And I was also a part of a non-EU country when I first started European
Mhm.
Parliament. And I think one of the backlash that I always received was, oh, why are you doing European Youth Parliament? Like, we're not even in the EU. How does this relate to the work? But for me, I think it was always a bit more about the idea of Europe rather than just the geographical limits of it. And I really liked, having this platform where we could share ideas and talk about social issues without having to represent a country's opinion. And it really captured me. But yeah, I think that's a misconception about the European Youth Parliament, maybe that our organization only exists in European Union countries.
I think so. You are now more connected maybe with like younger people and how they perceive it. Of course, in my head, it's just extremely clear. And I kind of think that might have been also clear back then when I was young that Ukraine or Eastern Partnership countries are European countries. That's why we also use the Council of Europe term. And of course, I think that's a more philosophical question, what's European values? But of course, for me, this participation for EYP is really about identifying with the values that it brings, which I do think for my case, Ukraine really belonged to right from the start and does belong. And that's, of course, now sadly what we also fight for Ukrainians fight for every single day, for the European way, for freedom, for democracy. So, yeah, to me, Europe is not EU, but of course, EU is the entity that many people associate it with.
Yeah, exactly. And I see it every day, of course, which is a pleasure to engage with young people and see how empowered they become after attending an European Youth Parliament event. But in your opinion, as the executive director of EYP, how does our organization create change in the community?
So, in my view, what we do is just extremely special and meaningful. And of course, in some ways, all the youth organizations do it. It's really just giving young people the powers that they have, and maybe those who do not understand they have it to really empower them. And this empowerment as a word, I think, really sticks with me and with us. It's like giving them the confidence, and that's what they do by joining and then going through this ladder of participation. But even a one-time participation, I think, makes a huge difference. It's to give them confidence to speak up, skills to critically reflect, to challenge themselves. Because, of course, if you come from a certain background, certain family, certain country, depends what opportunities you've had or not, but you might have encountered an opinion that you haven't before. And it's coming from a real person and not from a TV or your parents or your teacher. And that's, I think, is we don't really focus as much on the knowledge, but about the ability to process this knowledge, skills building experience, and just making sure that diverse perspectives are present, but that we learn how to discuss it in a civil way and just to critically reflect and engage, and essentially then to find a consensus. It's really is a really huge part of our methodology, that we want people to learn how to compromise, because it is what coexisting in society peacefully means to me personally, and I think that's also what EYP believes in, and it has as part of our values. But that's of course me thinking about it like theoretically. Practically, that's how we create change in the communities. The young people really feel that their voices matter.
Yeah. And friendships across borders
Yeah.
always helps intercultural understanding too. I mean, I remember my whole life trajectory actually got changed after I joined
Yeah.
EYP and I realized, oh, I want to study in Europe and I want to live here. But of course, I assume being one of the leading organizations in youth field, but also an NGO status to a certain extent is challenging and comes with a lot of challenges. So I would like to ask you, what is one prejudice that you would like to break in your field that you witness every day, whether it's about youth
Hmm.
work, NGOs, or just in general EYP?
So I think one very repetitive pattern that I see is that young people are apathetic and disengaged. And that's a little bit of, and we play this passive protagonist usually in like a lot of perceptions of decision makers. And I think that's really just wrong, because if you equip young people with the right tools and knowledge and skills and participation and this empowerment opportunity, it's the opposite. I think young people care deeply. We see it across Europe, across the world, that a lot of protests, a lot of movements are led by young people, by students. And yeah, it all comes down to these meaningful opportunities. And another prejudice, which is very common, is to have youth participation, but then when it gets to real participation, it's symbolic rather than real. But young people have great ideas. And even this term like young people, we don't think of non-young people, we don't call them old people, or like there is no term of non-young people. So of course, also all of these young people are people with their personalities and ideas. So yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And I think oftentimes one person is invited to represent the idea of youth. And every time
yeah,
that's the case, I'm like, but youth is such a big term.
yeah,
No
exactly.
one single entity will be able to talk for everyone. And yeah, that's what I also like about
Yeah,
EYP. You get to meet different people from different backgrounds with different ideas that are still united in the core
yeah,
values. Yes. Well, since we're in the podcast of gendered economics, I have to
yeah.
ask you how or does the work that you do relate to gender?
Mm, I think everything we do is always relates to a lot of the issues, including the gender. What we do in EYP is that we just try to give equal opportunities to participants from different backgrounds. And in that sense, of course, we try to create safe environments. So we have a lot of welfare-related policies where every single participant, no matter the gender, feels safe. But of course, some assumptions are made who might feel more unsafe or not safe. So that also we do. But also, to me, in our work and outside of my work, is just to make sure that there are no structural barriers. And of course, I think we could still look into it more broadly, but I believe that the policies that we have in place, and it's a fully youth-led governance, so my role is just to observe and implement, but it's really young people who create this policy for themselves. And those policies enable equal participation, in my view. So that's, I think, what we try to do in our work, and like look at our governing bodies, and of course, even your own, we also have and try to have equal participation, but of course, for the elected board, it's not as of a guarantee, but still we were quite successful with attracting different genders.
Yeah, I think this year we even are 50-50 in
Yeah, that's true.
balance. But definitely, I also see, like, I think as a young person, as a young female identifying person, when I started doing EYP in Turkey, where you don't really get a lot of opportunities to showcase leadership or build leadership when
Yeah.
you're very young, it was also quite good for me to have those skills and trainings on how to lead teams, how to communicate with different people in a good manner, and how to actually take feedback, because we are a very feedback adverse society,
Mhm.
very much of a sandwich method community. So it was really nice to understand what is constructive feedback and apply it to my work. But of course, I think gender never should be a barrier, is our mantra, let's say, when we create a safe space.
I think so, and I think what you said actually is right. I didn't even highlight it as much, but like this role modeling as such, I think, of course, is already quite meaningful because we have leadership positions filled by a variety of young people, women, men, and people who identify differently.
Yeah, definitely. Well, then, as an individual, I'm quite curious what feminism means to you, because we've had guests and I think there's no single definition we all agree on. So I'm really interested in your take.
I was also thinking, what does it mean to me when I, of course, listen to your other podcast, and I think it's more about this equal opportunities, and it sounds very broad, but also just about choices and no judgment. You know, I recently was triggered by someone I know who said like, now women feel so pressured to work and so pressured to do things. And of course, it's her choice. She lives in a free society, so she could choose to do it or not. And I think that's for me really what it comes down to, that you as a woman can choose what you do, and it's not the law in the extreme case of society or prejudice or family expectations who dictate it to you. And that it's not just your choice, but then you have actual options to fulfill this choice. I find this what feminism comes down to me. And that the very like structural barriers, which of course a lot of generations before fought for us already, so I feel already much more privileged than maybe my parents' generation felt. Uh, that I think what feminism is to me.
That's a very beautiful definition, I think, that you should not feel pressured to do something because of the gender identity that people put you in. And you should have that freedom of choice when it comes
Yeah.
down to it. Definitely. And I think EYP also stands for that, right? We kind of want to push for a more free, active society where people's choices are respected and people can voice their opinions. So, if, let's say, our listeners were to be interested in joining our organization,
Mhm.
how can they join EYP or how can they support EYP?
There are multiple ways to get involved. Of course, the easiest way for a young person to get involved is to be in touch with a national country committee, we call it. So there are contacts on the website, but if unsure, you could just always email the central email info at eyp.org, and we will connect you with the national chapter. And then you just start as a participant or as an organizer, it depends where you are from. If you want to support us, of course, you could also go to the website and see how you support and enable more youth participation for potential donors or organizations who listen to it. And as well as just also speak to people who you saw took part in EYP, just ask them how it was for them, if they recommend, and then see what the best way for you is.
I mean, I can definitely say I recommend, but I'm a little bit biased, of course. And I think maybe it's also good mentioning it again that we don't only exist in the European Union countries, but also beyond. So it's
Yeah.
really more of an idea of Europe that people should identify with to attend. But Anya, I'm a little bit curious because I think we skipped that part a little bit. But could you tell us how long EYP has been going on and how many people we have at an approximate rate, maybe?
So next year, maybe will turn 40, and it really is also a very good example of change and activism, maybe not, but like just how one individual could make such a huge difference because it was a group of a few teachers back in 1987 in France who set up EYP, developed all the methodologies that we still work with. Of course, the network has massively developed and made a lot of steps forward, also becoming youth-led. But that's really where our origins are from. And then next year we'll celebrate our 40th anniversary. And our estimation is that really hundreds of thousands of people went through the program, if you say, or participation in EVP. Every year, plus minus, we involve 25,000 participants in 40 countries and 500 events. That's our average numbers. So you could also do the math. And this is really like numbers of participation, but of course we rely on the work of volunteers. And it's like I'm one of very few employees, otherwise it's all run and done by volunteers. And each year we estimate we involve at least 3,000 of really active volunteers who engage and shape the organization, organize events, develop policies.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good moment to give a shout out to the teachers who founded us and the
Yeah,
volunteers who drive us further for 40 years.
100%. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
And I think one thing that stands to me with EYP is that it's very much of an inspirational place where, you get to meet a lot of people and you get to learn from your mistakes or you get to learn from best practices that other people have done that you've witnessed. So I also have to ask you, and I'm sure you have plenty of advice, but what is one advice you would like to give to the listeners of this podcast, maybe based on your experience in EYP or based on
Mhm.
your role that you take in EYP?
UAP related, and of course, like youth work related, just don't underestimate your voice and just use it. And it really matters what you say and how you say. Even at times, I feel all of us, not just young people, feel powerless and hopeless. And of course, with all the world events happening, sometimes we really just give up having a hope. But do not do that and just use your voice. There are so many opportunities for young people. Just look around. If you're unsure how to approach it, ask a teacher or someone you trust, and they will help you identify a good option for you. But also use these years where you have not as many obligations, hopefully, to explore the world and just do things because very soon you will not have that time. So that's nice to enjoy this moment now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Anya, for joining us for this episode. It was
Thank
really
you.
nice to delve into EYP and your experience with it.
Thank you. That was very nice to answer questions. It's always a good moment to reflect.
Well, I hope this episode helps people get to know EYP a little bit more and see that, well, there are multiple ways you can shape the society that you want to live in, starting with youth work, obviously. So age is not always a barrier.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Miriam. That was very nice. Thank you. Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.